Because they're allowed to use it. It's not illegal.
It's 2 years ago, I sold my first T-shirt, which dared to say that a woman is an adult human female. And since that time, who knew it was going to be quite so controversial to say that women don't have penises? Since the billboard went up, which you know, so the T-shirts raised money for the billboard. The billboard went up, and it was taken down on the grounds that saying a woman is an adult human female is hate speech. We've had people thrown out of pubs and political parties for wearing a T-shirt with the dictionary definition of woman. We've had women interrogated by political parties for saying they believe women don't have penises, or daring to use the word he when describing a man. The reason I've come to Speaker's Corner is because I think it's essential that each and every one of us speak things that are quickly becoming unutterable. And so we need to say, a woman is an adult human female, sex is immutable, men do not belong in women's spaces, men cannot ever, no matter what surgeries or hormones, become women. There is no such thing as being born. I think most people are not reflected on Twitter. Most people in this country agree that little girls, vulnerable women, any woman who desires has the right to a female-only space.
Here, here.
Of who is vulnerable, it is not a 50-year-old man that puts on some lipstick and a bad-fitting dress and leaves his house. That man is not a vulnerable member of society. He's incredibly entitled. Most of us wouldn't feel like we could walk down the street without inviting comment if we looked like that. Rightly or wrongly. So, I want everybody, the first Sunday of every month, we are going to come here and we are going to say the things to each other and put it in the ether that the police, the councils, your HR departments, social media technocrats, the government are beginning to tell you you are not allowed to say. We are fast becoming in this country that if a young woman, if a girl at school objects to a boy in her changing room, she's a bigot. If a young woman in a changing room in a school or in a leisure centre, if she objects to a man in her space, she may lose her membership and her right to access that space. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's from Parliament. No, I hope he is. So, that's what we're going to do every Sunday. We're going to make it a regular thing every first Sunday of every month, so that people can keep hearing these things, because soon you'll get to a point where nobody says it. Nobody says it in public, and then you'll think that you can't say it. Already some of you have probably experienced it where in your staff room, if you're teaching, in your nursing departments, if you work in a hospital, that you can no longer say, that man is a danger to the women's ward that he's in. Now, you would have read recently about the man who had possession of 80,000 pictures of child rape. He was reported in the news as being a woman. I happen to know somebody who was in a psychiatric ward, female only, psychiatric ward, where that man was 4 years ago. When that woman explained to the nursing staff that he frightened her, she was recorded in the notes as being a transphobic bigot. And all the women in that ward knew that he was unsafe. Because I'm sure most of us have met people where instantly we know they're unsafe.
Yeah, Kelly.
So, I don't know if you know anything about me, but I've been interviewed under caution twice by the British police for saying it's wrong to transition children, because ultimately the transition of children, according to the Tavistock, is often homophobic parents who would rather have a straight son than a gay, lesbian daughter. So it's gay conversion therapy of the most horrific kind, because there's no coming back once you've pumped a female body full of testosterone. She's at risk of heart failure. She's at risk of Alzheimer's. She's at risk of hysterectomy, cancer, osteoporosis. And we are doing this to children as soon as we pump their bodies full of hormones, as soon as we tell that little girl that yes, she's right, her body is wrong. So it's about time that we all stood up. Parents, you have the easiest access to the rights of your children. You go into school, you don't rely on the job by going into school. It's a totally confidential conversation. Your child is not going to get penalised. You go into your school and you ask what they're teaching about trans. You ask what the content of the sexual relationship education is. You ask about it. You don't let them get away with teaching your children things that you're not even told. So this is what you have to do. If you're a parent, you take your parental responsibility seriously and you go into schools. But we will be here every first Sunday of every month, so that each one of you can hear the words in the ether that sex change is impossible, being born in a wrong body is nonsense, transitioning children is gay conversion therapy, that we will not accept men in our space, and that women are adult human females.
Right. Right, can you hear? Am I loud enough? Because I can't get any louder. I'm used to having a megaphone, but we can't have one here. Okay. Right, good afternoon. Thank you for standing for women for organising this event. I'm Izzy Bell-Stuffy. I'm Bell-Stuffy on Twitter, and I host XX Power Nation public Facebook page, which is a UK radical feminist voice with an international following. I'm a radical feminist writer and an activist online and across the UK. I'm involved in a lot of campaigns. All the campaigns are focused on protection of women and children from male violence. I campaign and promote for the preservation of women's rights and women-only spaces. I campaign against pornography, BDSM, prostitution and human trafficking, racism, homophobia, and I campaign for lesbian rights. I'm also an outspoken gender abolitionist. I'm anti-transgenderism and anti-queer theory. I'm very vocal about this. I'm a lesbian, I am not queer. That term is an insult to us and used it against a lot of us to hurt us in the past. 3 years ago, I was threatened by a trans woman who was an autogynephile. Because of my feminism and because of my activism over retaining single-sex spaces such as prisons, refuges and toilets, which have been attacked, withdrawn and colonised by men. He threatened to fuck me up and socially isolate me in my local community, and he did. He has done, and now I have to moan. I have been shunned by the woke in my community as a result of me not accepting transgenderism, the belief that one is born in the wrong body and that humans can change sex. They can't. Trans women are always men and trans men are always women. The masculinization of a body does not render it male. The feminization of a body does not make it female. I have never experienced the sheer hatred and attempts made to intimidate me into silent compliance, as I have over my failure to believe in transgenderism. The homophobia in the transgender movement is staggering. I was permanently suspended and my whole account cancelled by Medium this year. I'm in good company. They also banned Dr. M, who most of you follow. My crime was to write an article based on my professional qualifications and 20 years working for the probation service in the UK and in West Yorkshire, managing male predators and male predatory behaviour in a bid to reduce the risk of them committing further serious harm. The article was intended to be used by other campaigners to save and protect single-sex spaces, such as refuges and prisons, from being accessed by men identifying as women. The article was initially published by Medium, but it caused such a controversy that they withdrew the article and suspended my whole account with them. I am still banned and I have been silenced by them. Uncommon Ground Media Limited published my article instead, and I would like to thank them again. I've been suspended from Twitter as Belle Stuffy for quoting the UK law on rape. I have been suspended numerous times on Facebook for hate speech and hateful conduct. I am not a hateful person. I am an angry woman, but I am not hateful. In February this year, I was trapped to within 50 metres of my front door by a middle-aged men's rights activist who had previously protested an anti-rape event by survivors from Manchester in order to intimidate and frighten me, silence me, and stop me exposing his woman-hating movement. Over the past 3 years, I've been spat at, shoved and closed down by organisers when myself and other gender-critical lesbians protested Pride across the north of the country last year with banners and a megaphone. We were protesting and defending our sexual boundaries, the fact that lesbians do not have manhood. And this was as a result, of Stonewall UK pressurising lesbians to have sex with trans women, who are, always will be, men. Lesbians are only same-sex attracted. Anyone who says different is a liar and a homophobe. Lesbians don't do dick, even if it has been rebranded a lady dick by Reiki men who fetishise lesbianism and lesbians. Again, the homophobia within the trans movement is staggering. So why am I such an evident threat? What is my crime against humanity that I need threatening, intimidating and censoring, as I am and have been done? It's to be a woman. It's to be a loud woman, usually with a megaphone. A loud lesbian with an educated and informed opinion and beliefs that contradicts transgenderism and completely rejects queer theory, and the men's sexual rights movement that promote and endorse this regressive shit. I am honoured to speak on the same platform as the rest of the women who are speaking this afternoon and Posey. Courage calls to courage. Women, we are winning. The GRA is dying, it's in the long grass, and schools are beginning to withdraw advice given by mermaids and Stonewall. Alison Bailey is bringing a legal case against Stonewall, and things are slowly turning. Our exposure of this harmful, regressive cult is working, and the public and parents are starting to see what queer theory really means. our activism and your activism is paying off. Lastly, we will never submit. We will prevail. We won't be silenced. And thank you for listening to me.
No.
Come on, Katie.
Go on. Okay. Give me like 5 minutes to prep something. Just let me.
Anything else, Christy? Come on.
Fuck it.
Come on.
I'll do it.
Go.
Go on. Woo!
I have no qualifications to talk about this. I'm just a woman that left the Labour Party.
Woo!
Just accepted Lily Madigan should be women's officer. I used to be what you would term, I guess, not a trans rights activist, but I used to believe in this. Trans women are women, trans men are men. Non-binary people are valid. Shit, quite frankly. I used to spout this stuff because I'm a young person. It's difficult for young women to speak out about this stuff because we're labelled transphobic, we're kicked out of our jobs, we're kicked out of our political parties, and we want to be nice. We want to be nice to people. We don't want to be seen as hateful, we don't want to be seen as bigots, and you know what, I don't see myself as hateful or a bigot. So this is kind of a message for the trans rights activists. Well done, you got a trans woman to be considered an open woman to be put in a women's prison. You put a rapist into a women's prison and you made it okay. And then you let women get harassed by rapists until, because the validation of trans people mattered more than that. You kicked women out of women's shelters because they were concerned that people with a penis were in their safe space, because trans person's feelings mattered more. You made it cool to threaten women. You called us TERFs. I'm sure we've all been called that at some point. She deserves it. She's a TERF, so she deserves to be beaten up. Women getting punched at protests is fine because they're TERFs. You bully people who do not want to have sex with you, and you label lesbians transphobic because your validation matters more than our sexuality. And by the way, lesbian, it is not a preference. Homosexuality is attraction to members of the same sex. You're not attracted to gendered presentation. I'm not attracted to people with penises because they're men, and that should be enough. You've created new laws that allow any male to enter the sex segregated spaces of a female, and as long as a male states I'm a woman, he is believed in that and allowed in. So now female spaces created for our safety are all access passes because trans people matter more. You threaten places to use inclusive language, and you bully those who have had female genital mutilation. You've threatened pregnant women who dare to speak about their vaginas, and you convince the world that speaking about female anatomy is not inclusive, but it's bigoted. Well done. You convince the world that trans women have more right to speak about women's rights than women do. Bizarre. You hold women's spaces in politics, you convince the world that males are women, and you sacrifice women in the process because you suffer from a narcissistic, egotistical, misogynistic view that you somehow matter more. You don't. You don't. You didn't fight for trans spaces, you wanted women's, and you steamrolled over us in the process. You didn't say, I'm trans, now let's fight against male violence together. You didn't say, I'm trans and I want my own space. You demanded that we call you women. You demanded that we allow you into womanhood, and you threatened people that disagreed with you, and you demanded that the world fall at your feet instead. You demand that the world worship your needs above all others, especially above women. And when we ask what a woman is, you say, a feeling. How offensive! What does it mean to feel to be a woman? You don't feel like a woman, you are a woman, and that's because of your biology. But the funny thing is, your ego will be your downfall, because a lot of us, including me when I was involved in left-wing politics, were prepared to fight for your rights to trans spaces. I was prepared to support you when you bitched about having less dating options. I was prepared to call you she if it made you feel any better. I was prepared to fight for your right to healthcare and your right to respect, prepared to fight against gender and male violence with you. I was prepared to be your ally, but then you called me a TERF. and you carried on calling me curse, and you said rape threats and death threats, and you told me that I deserved to be choked with glass. But then you said, no, I don't want trans spaces, I want yours. I want your vagina, your female spaces. I want you to stop using your words, I want you to stop talking about your body. I want to destroy you in your sports, take your places in public offices, schools and organisations. I want your womanhood, and you expect us to comply and to hand it over, and we're not going to do that. Yeah.
Well done.
I've never done public speaking before. I'm shaking.
Everyone's saying what a good strong
Yeah,
speaker
everyone's saying
you
what a
are.
wonderful
How-
speaker.
Well done.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria McLachlan.
Transit student in radical feminist. It's a misnomer.
Well done.
A very special place in my heart. 2.5 years ago, I was assaulted here by 3 men who claimed to be women. I was 60 years old. They were about 25. Only one of them was ever arrested and charged, and he was convicted of battery. Now, it was a minor assault, and if these trans activists had done the decent thing, like condemn the assault and distance themselves from it, the effects on me would have been very, very different. The effects on a lot of people would have been different. That instant, the assault did wake up a lot of people to what was going on, but what happened afterwards was much, much worse. I'd like to show you some of the comments which I've collected on my website at peaktrans.org. This is absolutely the next day or two after I was assaulted. It would be nice if there were roving gangs of trans women beating the shit out of transphobes. I wish she was punched harder. I hope more of you get punched and hopefully raped and killed.
What the
TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, it's a derogatory term. It applies to anybody who stands up to this iniquitous ideology. TERFs get people, trans people murdered. Punching them is self-defense. And to one person, I'm a giant, terrifying beast who tossed and kicked around a person half my size. It was a 25-year-old man who was 6 foot tall. I'm part of a weird cult of trans-hating provocateurs who openly fantasize about our mass extermination. I mean, these people are pathetic. That was the first bloody meeting I had ever gone to. I was not a well-known feminist. I wasn't a Germaine Greer or anyone like that. I was just an ordinary woman who wanted to go to a meeting to hear about the effects on the lives of women and girls about proposed changes to the law. Now, after that long haul, the most awful 2.5 years imaginable for many of us, because so many of us have endured the most horrific bullying, as we've heard. I've also been banned for Twitter for what? For saying that men can't be women. It's a campaign of silencing, and yet it does feel as if we're starting to make it again. That piece of legislation that I was concerned about has hopefully been kicked to the long grass where it will die. And that is because we have fought so hard in this country. I can't tell you how proud I am of the homegrown feminists, the real feminists, not the ones feminism is about women's liberation and not male entitlement. That's all I'm saying.
Resipsia loquitur. It means let the facts speak for themselves. I never thought it never had much relevance to me over the last decade, and so I started getting involved in this whole thing. And it feels more relevant to me now than ever, because in the end, I think with the transgenderism, the truth is always going to come out. It's a movement based on lies and deceit. It denies our intuition from our body, from what we understand about ourselves, man, the women, that is it. I think this is the last year we may experience the sense of cognitive dissonance. I think this is the year it comes to an end. And I've only had the bravery to speak out because of people like Venice, Posey, wherever she is, my friends over there. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have felt so encouraged. So I think that if people just keep fighting and keep speaking out, like me, I'm just an ordinary girl, there's going to be a massive difference. And
Hello everybody! I haven't prepared anything, but they've made me come up on stage, so I'm just going to say some words. And yeah, hopefully they'll be alright. My name's DJ Lippy, I run a blog called Make More Noise. I just wanted to say, like 3 years ago, I hadn't heard of any of this. I hadn't done any activism or anything like this. I was just a DJ, bit of a gobshite on Twitter. My mate Venice started banging on Facebook saying mad things like, do women have penises? And at this point I was like, yes Venice, some women do have penises. So, and I went off, did my research. It took me so long to finally figure out what was going on. It's amazing what Goldsmith's education does to your mind. And then eventually I came to my first meeting. It was one that Posey Pond in Manchester. I came to the meeting, I met some women. A week later we started off doing some activism. We did some stickering, caused a bit of a reaction. And from there, that's all I've been doing, speaking out, stickering, putting on events. I just want to say, you probably don't think, maybe this is not for you, maybe you've never got up on stage, maybe you've never spoken out on social media, whatever it is you do, just start doing things, just start speaking out, start having the conversations. You might not think you've got the words, but you have. It's all basic common sense, and they try and make it really, really confusing with all this language. Don't use their language. Don't go call people trans-identified males. It's basic. Stop playing their game. Trans women are men. We've got to start saying it like that, because we're not saying anything like untoward. We're not saying they're all mad sexual predators. We're saying they're men and they behave like men. And if we use all this confusing language, we're never going to get out of it. So, you know, don't feel like you've got to say things in a certain way. Obviously, if you don't want to get kicked off Twitter, you might have to be careful with the pronouns. But yeah, just start speaking out. You probably don't think, you might not think you've got the words for it, and I know it's really scary. I've lost friends over this. You know, and I know how hard it is. But that's all it takes. More women and men, anybody, just stand up and be brave and say what you think. And yeah, that's it really. Who's next? Who's going to speak? Anyone want to speak? Go on, Venice. Is anyone else planning?
I wasn't even planning on doing anything.
Why don't you speak, Kelly?
No. Thanks though.
I didn't write a great speech either, but I just wrote a few notes. And as Posey said, we're going to plan to come here for the first Sunday of every month, because we've all been chucked off Twitter. We have to be really careful about what we say on Facebook or any of these other things. But here at Speaker's Corner, there's a tradition that goes back hundreds of years where we can say what we believe. And what we believe isn't hate speech, just plain common sense. So, next Wednesday they say we're going to hear what the government are going to do about the GRA. And from everything we've heard, it's great news. But what is this thing about conversion therapy? What does that actually mean? Because we know that banning conversion therapy in Canada, for example, has banned any therapy for children that doesn't affirm their trans identity. And so we need to make sure, I think that's why we need to keep pushing the government at the moment, to say that helping children love their own natural bodies is not conversion therapy. No. Trans kids is conversion therapy. Okay, so we need to just keep saying these things. I want to say these things here, certain things here that I couldn't even say on Facebook. I'm already, Twitter's more harsh, but even on Facebook you get a month ban or a week ban or whatever. So we need to keep saying that puberty blockers are not reversible. How could they be reversible? Sure, if you take them for a year because you're growing too quickly or whatever, I don't know about that, but how can a kid go on puberty blockers at the age of 12 and then keep taking them till they're 18 and then go on cross-sex hormones? How can that be reversible? It's not reversible. It's experimenting on children's bodies and their sexual development, and that is immoral and it's evil. And why is that controversial? Why should that get us banned from social media? We all know that 75% of kids at the Tavistock clinic are girls, and we're told that if we don't affirm their identity as men, we don't help them remove their breasts before they're even developed. We're told that they'll kill themselves. Well, where were these girls in the past? Where were these girls when I was a teenager? They were anorexic. Yeah. The next generation for me, they were cutting themselves. Now the girls, they're anorexics, they're cutting themselves, and they're also saying that they're boys. Transing kids is abuse. And I actually got banned for this on Facebook. There is no such thing as a trans kid. Yeah. But if you say that online, you'll get banned. Okay, so why are all these girls transing? They're being told that the autistic girls, lesbian girls, girls who just feel unhappy because of sexual abuse, whatever the reason is, they're being told that unhappiness can be cured by by saying that they're boys and by making everyone go along with the fact that they're boys. Who is leading? Who is leading these girls? Who is giving that message to these girls? Transvestite men. Transvestites have been working away for years to use girls, little boys and women as a shield to hide, a shield to the stigma of their fetish. And to say that is like, oh God, you're saying that all trans people are predators. We're not saying that.
That's what George said to me.
I have no idea what drives all men to say that they're women, but we do know it's completely obvious that transvestism, cross-dressing is a fetish for a lot of men. Yeah. All you have to do is look on Twitter, hashtag girls like us, trans is beautiful, sissy, I can't think of any of the other ones, but you just look at those hashtags, lady dick, girl dick, just look at those hashtags and tell us that there is not a huge problem of men finding it sexually exciting to pretend that they're women. I woke up this morning and I just happened to click on that talk radio clip with Ed Davey. Did anyone else hear that Ed Davey?
Oh no.
It just made me so angry. He's saying that he's wants to be the leader of the Liberal Democrats. He was just saying that he supports the LGBT community to self-identify, and he just disagrees. He wants human rights and dignity for everyone, except for women. We don't want men with or without their penis in our changing rooms, in our prisons. I don't care what they've done. I don't, because, yeah, obviously a man with a penis in a woman's face is horrible, but then how far down this rabbit hole do you have to go to actually cut off your own penis? They're the even more extreme men. And you don't need a penis to sexually assault a woman. You don't want them in there. So I'm just going to finish by saying things that I can't say on Facebook. Trans women are men. Women don't have penises. And there is no such thing as a trans woman. There is no such thing as a trans man. And there is it's absolutely terrible to say that there is such a thing as a trans kid. There is no such thing as a trans kid. Anyone else can speak? Come on.
It's not that scary, I promise.
Can you?
I've got an objective webinar in an hour.
Okay. And then?
I don't advance it.
Oh, which one? Please have to shout.
Oh, sorry. If you can be retroactively kicked off of things like Twitter for saying something like grooming, I spend a lot of time on Twitter. It's very fun. You can debate for hours, but you waste a lot of time. Like glitter. Sorry, I did not plan for this. I don't know if you can tell I'm winking it. I've bottled it.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for everyone that listened. A young family were here, and a 12-year-old girl, in her school report, was referred to as they, because the school has decided, without the consent of parents, that all children are now to be addressed by a neutral pronoun. In addition to that, in assemblies at this girls' school, the children are frequently asked to say publicly what their views are on the whole trans debate. So they'll have guest speakers in the school, they'll be expected to shame children in the assembly about whether or not they think that trans women are women, that children should be able to choose their sex. So it really is everywhere. There's a couple of men over there who don't really know what the fuss is about, but I guess for them, I'm assuming that their community, their straight community, is not being impacted. They're not watching their young lesbian or gay teenagers. They're not watching them get transitioned. They're not watching them being told their bodies are wrong. They're not seeing the decimation of lesbian-only spaces, or now gay men being told they're transphobic if they don't quite fancy somebody who has a vagina. So I think, set that now. So I think it's really important. Keep having real conversations. These things are great. We will keep coming here the first Sunday of every month. But don't start self-censoring. I mean, clearly if you work in the wokest of woke companies, don't lose your job. Don't self-censor. And one thing I would just like to add, if we start bolstering the voices of people who speak up, and we make sure that they are cushioned, empowered, and loved, and we pick them up, we don't need to spend our time on men who try to suppress our speech. We don't need to waste our time with trans activists who just enjoy saying vile things on Twitter. Don't waste your time with them. We can make this movement one of empowerment of the voices that speak up, and not the destruction and the decimation of the people that we oppose. Anyway. Some of them are men's sizes.
Oh, I get one for my husband. Yeah.